Salete omnes. This is chapter 39, exercise A. We are to first identify the indirect statement, that is, the substantive or noun clause, in the following sentences by bracketing them. So put brackets around the indirect statement. Then we are to translate by writing the English translation in the box. Sententia prima. Dico te januam claudere debere. So first we identify the indirect statement. The indirect statement, remember, is a noun clause. As a noun clause is a substantive. Substantive is just a fancy word for noun. It is the object, or it can also be the subject, but here it's acting as the object of another verb, what we call a head verb. So dico here is our head verb. These are actions which come from your head. So to speak, say, to hear, to see, to listen, to think, to realize, to feel that. And then there'll be a that in English. Latin doesn't use, of course, the English word that, or any word that corresponds to the English word that to introduce an indirect statement. The subject is just in the accusative, and the verb will be an infinitive. Now, it seems like the trickiest part is figuring out the tense of the infinitive. So the present infinitive will be used to show an action which is contemporaneous. That means it is happening at the same time, tempus temporis neuter, as the main verb, as the head verb, which introduced the indirect statement. The perfect infinitive is used to show an action which happened prior to the main verb, or the head verb. And then the future infinitive is used to show an action which is subsequent, or happening after the main verb or head verb, which introduces the indirect statement. So in dico te januam claudere debere, we have dico, I say that. What do I say? Dico, I say. Well, what? What thing? What follows is going to be a noun. The answer to what is a noun. That. It's just not one noun, it's a noun clause. It's a whole clause. It's got a subject, te, and it's got a verb, which is debere. So we bracket, put brackets around the indirect statement. This whole thing acts like one big long accusative, direct object of dico, the introductory head verb. That's why the subject is in the accusative, it's te. The verb is an infinitive, debere. Now debere, to owe or ought, to, takes a complementary infinitive to complete or complement its meaning, and that's claudere. And then that in turn takes an accusative direct object. I say that you ought to shut the door. I say that you ought to shut the door. What do I say? This whole thing. That you ought to shut the door. Optime, sententia secunda. Credisne eum copias instructorum. So we have an interrogative, a question introduced by a word ending in the enclitic ne. This is a question which can be answered by either a neutral yes or no. We're not trying to influence the answer at all. So credisne, from credo, credere, credidi, creditus, which takes the dative, to believe or trust in. It can also take an indirect statement. I believe that. And what do I believe? Well, a whole big long thing, a whole big long clause, a substantive, a noun clause. Credisne, do you believe? Yes or no? Do you believe? Eum copias instructorum, that And then this is our indirect statement. This is what you believe, or not. The subject will be an accusative, eum or copias. Oh wow, what a dilemma. So when we go to instructorum, from instruo, instruere, instruxi, instructus, which means to equip, or to draw up, which means to draw up into lines, into formation, into battle array. So to draw, usually an aciem, from acies, a feminine. To draw up a battle line, get them ready for battle, get them ready to fight, get them in order, in ranks. So this is a future. You can see the like the word future, from the fourth principal part. So it's not instructus aum, it's instructurus aum. Where's the essay? The essay is implied. If the Roman can get away with not writing the essay, the Roman will go ahead and do that. So it stands in for instructorum esse, or esse instructorum, because the essay can kind of float about where it likes, or not be there at all. The urum is enough to tell you it's future. Now remember, when I make you synopsize these verbs and write out these infinitives, you're supposed to put instructurus aum esse, for this very reason, that us urus aum, it agrees with the thing that is supposed to do the drawing up. So who's going to do the drawing up? Who's going to draw up what? Tells us that eum is the one that's going to do the drawing up. Him, eum, accusative singular masculine. Him, he will draw up the kopias, the direct object kopias, the direct object accusative of this verb, this infinitive. Do you believe that he will equip the forces? Do you believe that he will draw up the forces? Instructorum as a future infinitive shows an action which will happen subsequent after the main verb, the head verb that introduced the indirect statement. Do you believe right now in the present that he will draw up the forces? Just as in sentence number 1, sententia prima, I say in the present tense that you right now, contemporaneously, present infinitive, contemporaneously ought to shut the door. Sententia tertia. Intellegunt nos lucisse. Intellegunt nos lucisse. So intellegunt, from intellego, intellegere, intellexi, intellectus. So to understand, to interlego, to read between the lines. Intellegunt, third plural, and it's present, unt ending. Future would be ent, intellegent. This is intellegunt, unt. They understand, they, third plural. They understand what? What do they understand? Head verb, introducing nos lucisse, the indirect statement, what they understand. They understand nos lucisse. The subject accusative is nos. The accusative of nos, nosri, nobis, nos, nobis. So we. That we, lucisse, from ludo, ludere, luci, lusus. Perfect stem is loose, and then add isse to get the perfect active infinitive. So lucisse. This is perfect, so it's showing a prior action to the main introductory head verb. So they understand right now in the present time, present tense, that we have prior to this already played. We have played. We played. We already did that. We're done with that. Do you understand that right now? That we have prior to already done that? They understand that we played. Duh. Quarta, sententia quarta. Existimabam exercitum posse superare hostes. So existimabam, first person singular imperfect active indicative of existimo, existimare, existimave, existimatus. I was knowing, thinking, supposing. It's ex istimo. Istimo means to value something. And the ex means that you've reckoned something out, like you've calculated out the value of something. So this is your supposition, your best guesstimate. So I was guesstimating, estimating, thinking, supposing. What? What were you thinking, supposing? What were you counting up? What were you reckoning? That, this whole thing. Accusative subject, exercitum. Could be the hostes, but it's probably going to be exercitum because it's hanging out right here at the beginning. Word order kind of does make a difference here, a little bit, because the subject will be in the accusative and the direct object will still be in the accusative. Typically, the subject comes first. Exercitum probably is the subject, accusative. Posse. Posse's got to be your main verb because it screams out for a complementary infinitive, and that's going to be superare, to be able to overcome, to defeat, surpass the hostes, the enemy. So this will be the accusative direct object. Word order is a thing here. I was thinking that I was supposing, we could just say, I supposed that the army, posse, being a present infinitive, shows an action which was contemporaneous with this past tense introductory head verb, meaning that the army was at that time when I was thinking about it in the past, contemporaneous to the introductory verb, able to defeat the enemy. So the translation will read, I supposed that the army was able to defeat the enemy. I reckoned that the army was able to defeat the enemy. Ran the math, did the calculations, existimabam. I did that for quite some time too, imperfect tense. And at that time, the army was able to defeat the enemy. Quinta, sententia quinta. Nos pecuniam recepturos esse sperat. Now, can the introductory head verb come at the end of the sentence as the last word? Well, yeah, of course it can. Now, spero, sperare, sperarvi, speratus, to hope. You can hope for a thing. Like you can hope for rain. You can hope for better times. You can hope for a pony. And that will just take an accusative direct object. Simple. But if you hope for a verb, if you hope to do something, if you hope for a clause, as in there's something with a subject having to do with a verb, well then that has to take an indirect statement. Like if I hope to have a pony, that sounds like an infinitive. To have a pony, to own a pony. I hope to own a pony. To own. That sounds like an infinitive. Indeed, in English uses an infinitive, but Latin does not. Latin uses always an indirect statement. So you have to turn that around to say, I hope that I will own a pony. I hope that I may, subject accusative, will own, future infinitive, a pony. So sperat, it's the verb that introduces it. So the subject of the accusative, the subject accusative of the indirect statement is nos, that we. Pecuniam is the direct object of the infinitive recepturos. I note that it's recepturos, accusative plural masculine, to go with the nos. And it's future, recepturos, and because it's future, it's a subsequent action to the introductory head verb. So it will happen in the future after sperat. It will happen after, subsequent to the introductory verb. He, she, it hopes that we will accept the money. Of course we will. He hopes that we will accept the money. Sexta, sententia sexta. Hostes accedere sciuit. So we have hostes, nominative or accusative, plural masculine, hostis, hostis masculine, enemy, accedere, present active infinitive of accedo, accedere, accessi, accessus. And then sciuit, scio, sciere, scivi, scitus. To know something. What do I know? Not very much. What do I know? This thing. This right here, this substantive. It's like one long accusative direct object. Hostes accedere. He knew that the subject accusative, the enemy, accedere, were approaching. That the enemy were approaching. That the enemy was approaching. He knew that the enemy was approaching. So as a present infinitive, accedere, this is a contemporaneous action to the introductory main head verb. So in the past, he, she, it knew in the past, yesterday, last week, whenever, sciuit, perfect tense, knew it. That, and at that time, contemporaneously, at that same time, the enemy was approaching. He knew the enemy was approaching. Septima, sententia septima. Cognovit me venturum esse. So cognove, cognosco, cognoscere, cognovi, cognitus. To learn, to find out. Remember, in the past tenses, perfect, pluperfect, future perfect, if you have learned something, then you, present tense, know it. So you could translate cognovit as either he, she, it learned, he, she, it has learned, or he, she, it knows. Present tense knows for a perfect tense has learned. Tricky, tricky. Anyway, it introduces this substantive noun clause, this indirect statement where the subject is in the accusative case, me, that's the accusative of ego, I, and then venturum esse from venio, venire, veni, ventus, to come. So venturum, accusative singular masculine to agree with me. So he, she, it has learned that I will come. It is a future infinitive showing a subsequent action to the main introductory head verb. He, she, it has figured out that I will come. 8. Octava. Dicit pueros mitti. So dico, dicere, dixi, dictus, the king of indirect statement, to speak or say. That, the accusative subject of the indirect statement, is pueros, and then mitti, the present passive infinitive of mitto, mittere, misi, misus, to send. As the present passive infinitive, present infinitive is contemporaneous to the introductory main head verb. So he, she, it says that, well, what is going on contemporaneously at the same time, concurrently as the main verb, that the pueros mitti, the boys are sent. The boys are being sent. He says that the boys are being sent right now, same time, contemporaneously. Nona, sententia nona. Putat milites pugnavi se. So putat, he, she, it thinks, fancies, imagines. Puto, putare, putavi, putatus. It's the root of compute, computer, pute, to think. What do we think? What does he, she, it think? Substantive noun clause. That milites pugnavi se. Miles militis, masculine, soldier. And then pugnavi se is the perfect active infinitive of pugna, pugnare, pugnavi, pugnatus, to fight. So he, she, it thinks that the soldiers, now when do they do the fighting? Pugnavi se, perfect infinitive, so that is a prior action to the main introductory head verb. He, she, it thinks that, well, what happened? The soldiers fought. The soldiers have fought. He, she, it thinks that the soldiers have fought. They already did it. They already did the thing that they fought. They have fought. Endekimas, intentia decima. Skio vos hoc probare. Skio, skiere, skioi, skitos. I know. I can know that. What do I know? Vos hoc probare. Vos, from vos, vestri, vobis, vos, vobis. Y'all, ye, you plural, second person plural. Hoc, from hic, haec, hoc. And then probare is our present active infinitive. As a present active infinitive, present infinitive, it shows an action as happening contemporaneous, same time as the main introductory head verb. So, I know that ye, y'all, approve hoc this. Takes an accusative direct object. Hoc, accusative singular neuter. I know that ye approve this. I know right now that ye right now at the same time approve this. Optime, very well done.